Also on the doorstep of another football season, both the WA clubs had big match simulations on the weekend. Their round one teams are starting to take shape. Ash Nelson from Channel 10 News Perth was down at Coburn to watch Fremantle go through their paces. She joins us on the show now. Ash, welcome.
Duff, hello to you. 35 degrees. I'm mortified. I might have to rethink the outfit for today.
I never give my outfits much thought, Ash, because I don't have that many of them. It's usually one of about 3 or 4, and it's usually only 2 of them are clean. So it's a 50-50 bet, whatever I'm wearing any particular day. What did you see down at Coburn on the weekend?
Oh, well, I think you might have actually mentioned it earlier in the morning, Duff, about pre-season and intra-club matches. You take it with a pinch of salt, but certainly gives you a couple of little indications as to how the Fremantle Dockers or West Coast Eagles might be looking to line up in their style of play for the year. So that's always an interesting watch. Certainly the quality of the game improved after the first quarter. I have to say that if you're watching as a Freo fan that first quarter, you probably would have been disappointed with the disposal efficiency being shown by both sides, but certainly that did improve. And I think just more the combination work, particularly with a few of the new additions into the group, was also really nice to see. So the likes of Shai Bolton coming back through the midfield and the connection piece there. And then on top of that, I think the big story that came out from that day, which everyone's been talking about, is their top draft pick of the Fremantle Dockers, Reid. So, yeah, a couple of sort of key points coming out, but combination work and maybe just a few bolters for that round one selection.
So Reid, there was a great highlight piece of him that I saw where he faked left twice and then fed the ball right to Caleb Serong. Caleb Serong ran on and kicked a goal. Are we reading too much into it if we said that Reid may now be in front of both Neil Erasmus and Matt Johnson for a round one berth as that sort of third, fourth or fifth midfielder in the Fremantle engine room?
No, I don't think we're reading too much into it at all. I think he's not a lock, but I think he certainly has put himself in contention, and from what we have seen in that intra-club, he's certainly a very impressive operator for a first-year player. So where I was actually sitting, I was sitting down sort of towards the back end of the oval, and there was a media contingent, and then there was also, let's just say, some seasoned Freo fans down there. And they were making sure that our local paper knew that there was another Reid in town to write about. So they were getting that across. Reid is his name. And listen, he was, I think pick 17 in the draft stuff. And I think at the time, from memory, a lot of people were quite surprised that he slipped down to 17 and Dockers were able to pick him up. And he came with a lot of clout as far as his ability to have and create time on ball and bring others into the game. And that combination piece, as you said, with that little clip with Serong, that was just one highlight of the game. Quite regularly through the midfield and also in the forward line, he was able to bring others into the game with quick hands. Usually when players have a lot of time, it's because they know where they're going to be putting the ball next. So his awareness and ability to create space really is quite impressive, and that sometimes has been the knock on the likes of Matthew Johnson and also Neil Erasmus, that being caught with the ball, particularly Neil Erasmus at that AFL level, is something that he's had to sort of work on. So I don't think we're reading too much into it. He doesn't seem rushed. He has the magical gift of time. It's something that is consistent with his game as well. So that was the clout he came with from Vic Metro and Sandringham Dragons. We've only really seen him do it in the intra-squad game, but it does seem to marry up with past performances. So, listen, if there's going to be a draftee that's going to be a round one pick, you're going to have to put Reid at the top of the list. And he's really versatile. He was probably playing a role similar to Sam Sukowski. Now, we know Sam is out with concussion, and that's a bit of a watch in itself as far as whether or not Sam's going to be able to get back for round one based on his history. But he can play up forward, half forward, kick a good goal, and also play back through the middle. So he's got that versatility piece as well, Reid. So an exciting prospect for a lot of Dockers fans, I think.
Injury concern to come out of the match. We hear that Josh Draper suffered hamstring awareness. Was there an obvious point in the game where he pulled up short, or did he just sort of be taken off and put in ice? How serious do you think it might be?
No, it wasn't an obvious, from what we could see. There wasn't, and we just all of a sudden appeared on the bench, I think, after half-time, didn't come back on in that third quarter and put the T-shirt on. So saw Carl Warner switch out from the B team into the A team, and that was the biggest indication that there must have been some sort of injury. So straight after the game, Fremantle pretty upfront that he was having hamstring awareness and be sent for scans. So not too sure of what the result of that is at the moment, but it certainly didn't seem like anything too drastic. So hopefully, fingers crossed for them, that he's recognised the early signs and might just be a week or two.
You mentioned Shai Bolton. What did we see from him? Where did he play mainly? How much time did he spend forward? How much time did he spend midfield?
Yeah, a bit of 50-50, I would say. Listen, a lot to like about him. I think Fremantle Docker's speed through the midfield has been something that's been a bit of an issue for them, and particularly needing someone there to sort of support the likes of Hayden Young, Brayshaw, Caleb Sarong, wonderful players, but they're not going to be able to cut through the midfield. So Shai Bolton, he's a game changer. Wouldn't say that necessarily he's known for his consistency, but that's also what Fremantle needs, someone to step up in those big moments. And Shai Bolton showed signs of that. His relationship with Caleb Sarong, I felt like Murphy, Reid, Shai Bolton, Caleb Sarong, they had something good going on in the middle there. Just the one goal for Shai Bolton yesterday from memory. But I mean, he's got the clout to sort of prove that, hasn't he, with Tigers? We know that he can kick a goal. So I feel as though that Fremantle Dockers are going to get their bang for buck for him moving back through the midfield and adding a bit of speed through there as well.
Bit of intrigue, obviously, coming out of the All-Stars game about how they will use Luke Jackson. What did you see in their use of Luke Jackson at the weekend? Was he mainly forward? Did he spend time on ball? And did he spend time as a midfielder?
Yeah, so life without Sean Darcy, we know that he's going to be ruled out for at least the first sort of 3 games, potentially more. No need to sort of rush him back given his injury history. So I think it's a really fascinating talking point, Duff, and you might know more than what I do. But yeah, how they use Luke Jackson for the start of the year is going to be fascinating. We know last year, Luke Jackson, he was a sole ruck early, he was electric. Whether or not he could have carried that on throughout the year, because he was a little bit of a smaller frame last year, he's gone away this pre-season and he is in great nick. He's put on a fair bit of size, but he's also kept that athletic ability as well, which is just integral for him. So his ability to carry out that sole ruck at the moment with that extra sort of kilos, I think he's capable of doing that. If Fremantle are going to do that, there was no sign of it yesterday. He spent majority of his time playing in the forward line. So Liam Reedy spent most of the time in the ruck going head-to-head with Aidan Riddle. So they do seem as though they're sort of stuck with that Tracy, Amos, Luke Jackson forward line. For me, listen, I'd be playing Luke Jackson as a ruck. It does seem as though they're trying to shape him as a forward, and they continue to push that 2-ruck structure going forward. So Liam Reedy, if the intra-squad is anything to go by, looks as though he's going to be playing a pretty big role through the middle there and Luke Jackson forward. But, yeah, an interesting watch on Luke Jackson. Didn't spend too much time rolling through the middle. It just seemed like he was pinch hitting in the ruck and then going forward. So maybe they were wanting to practice that forward structure a little bit more in the intra-squad as well.
Josh Tracy, dominant as a forward, looks like he might be able to build on that 45-goal season last year.
Yeah, he looked good. I think he spent a bit of time on Oscar McDonald. So, you know, a fairly decent matchup. As I said, intra-squad, you take it with a pinch of salt, but he does look in good nick. He's physically dominant. Last year, he really had a breakout season. And a lot of the goals that he kicked yesterday were coming from contested marking situations as well. Pack marks, so really strong overhead, leaping over the top of Luke Jackson on occasion and Jai Amos. He really was the pick of the bunch yesterday when you're comparing Jackson, Amos, and even Voss, who was playing for the B team. How that dynamic up forward works is going to be critical for the Dockers. Amos, I'd have to say, has been a little bit quiet during the pre-season from the matches that I have watched, but Josh Tracy looks like he's going to steamroll his way into the season, and that's good signs for the Fremantle Dockers and him, given that he came off the back of that knee injury at the end of last year.
One more before we switch to the Eagles, Ash. What did you see on ball movement out of the back line? They were Well, Justin Longmuir raised eyebrows when he called their game plan against the All-Stars vanilla and basically said that's what they were looking to do, to not give too much away about the way they're going to play. Did you see anything about more dynamic ball movement coming out of the back half to try and get the ball in motion and moving through the corridor?
Yeah, well, I don't think that it's probably any surprise, but you take a look at their halfback line and it really hasn't changed since last year, but you've got the likes of Chapman, Wagner and Clark, so they do have that speed through the halfback line. Ryan Cox-Draper, sort of that full-back line. I wouldn't say that it's changed too much from last year. I think that's probably what they were trying to implement, that rebound and run through the middle of the guts as well, finding that 45 ball to the likes of Hayden Young and maybe Caleb Sarong as well in order to get the ball forward. But I don't think we're seeing anything too different from last year, if I'm being completely honest. I just think they've got that halfback line that's got a bit of speed and zip about them, and that's how they're going to use it.
Harley Reid back in action at West Coast. We saw fend-off after fend-off, and certainly some of the dash that he provided last year. You've been watching Harley for much of the summer, Ash. Do you think he's had interruptions? He's looked a little bit heavy at times. Do you think he's going to be ready for round one?
Yeah, well, I think Paul Clay Hall's going to be watching that fend-off from Harley Reid on repeat, and people are going to be showing it to him. It's not a nice way to treat a teammate, but... Yeah, Harley Reid, second year in, this is, I'm saying an interesting watch, but Harley Reid really is an interesting watch. We were always wondering last year how he was going to go first year. He came in, he was a ready-made player, but we talk a lot about second-year blues, don't we? And if Harley Reid can kind of get through this pre-season, which has been interrupted, and hit the ground running, that's a fantastic effort for him. He looked good in the intra-squad, but we know he's a competitive beast. But yeah, the pre-season for him, he had a concussion early on. He's had a sore ankle. I think there might have been even some soft tissue kind of issues that he was dealing with as well. So yeah, whether or not, the first 5 games he manages to get through, and then it sort of starts to catch up with him, the fact that he hasn't had a particularly strong lead-in, we might sort of see it come to fruition there. So Harley Reid, for me, looks in great nick, and he's a talented player, but does having the interrupted pre-season come back and bite you in the bottom, so to speak. We'll have to wait and see. But, yeah, he's exciting to watch.
Ruben Ginbey looks like he's starting to grow into that third defender role and did a couple of nice things in their match simulation. But how is it that a week after the unfortunate collision that saw Sam Lawler get a fractured jaw, how is it that we're still waiting for an outcome from the MRO on whether Ruben Ginbey has a case to answer?
It's ridiculous. I need to go back to my messages to the AFL trying to find out as to when Ruben Ginbey was actually going to hear an answer as well. And that's the thing that I find most frustrating, is that how can we not have an answer as to when he's at least going to find out that he's got a case to answer for? So I was getting told the next day, no, it might be tomorrow, it might be a couple of days after. I went, this is annoying for me as a journo, let alone Ruben Ginbey, trying to figure out whether or not he's going to have to mount a defence in order for him to play round one. So I remember watching it at the time. I went down to the Richmond Eagles game. It'd be interesting to see what your stance is on it, Duff, as well. And at the time I went, I don't think there's much in that. I had to go back and take a look at it because I thought maybe it might have actually been a tunnelling action, but Sam Lawler didn't get off the ground. So at the time when I first saw it, I went, nah, nothing in that. As it's gone on, Ruben Ginbey probably regrets the fact that he's unfortunately pushed a guy that was the number one pick in the AFL, and he's ended up with a fractured jaw. Now, the fractured jaw does play a big part of this. I've thought about, I guess, the AFL and the focus on concussion and protecting the head. There's no precedence that's really been set, is there? But when you're electing to tackle somebody, you take on the ownership and the duty of care with that. It probably doesn't change too much when you're electing to push someone. And the push was probably a little bit late or not necessarily needed when you take a look back at the footage. So Ruben Ginbey, while he hasn't heard yet, there could actually be a little bit of trouble brewing for Ruben Ginbey on reflection of what I've seen. I don't know if there should be, but... the MRO might actually take a bit more of a look at it.
My guess is that he probably won't face a suspension, but it's only a guess. I think it could easily go the other way. I think that given there was a free kick paid, the umpire has deemed it an illegal action, and given that there's an injury, it's an illegal action causing an injury. If you marry that up with the AFL stance on duty of care, then that gives Ruben some cause for concern. I tend to think they'll say, no, not a typical suspendable action, but I tend to think if they went that way, they might also send a little message to West Coast saying, don't make a habit of this, because the next time we might not be so generous. Ash, a pleasure to have you on the show. Hopefully we can get you on a lot more during the course of the season. Thanks for joining us, and all the best with the season to come.
Absolute pleasure. Looking forward to it.